Welcome to BookLeesh, the place where books aren't just read, they're felt. If you're someone who's hungry for deep truths, if you believe that one idea, one page, one story can change the course of your life, you've found your tribe. Here, we don't just talk about books. We live them. We dive into the minds of the greatest thinkers, warriors, leaders, and visionaries. We extract the lessons that can unlock your potential, sharpen your thinking, and awaken the fire within you. So, whether you're lost, searching, or just ready to rise, BookLeesh is your home for transformation, one book at a time. Let's turn pages. Let's turn pain into power. Let's turn knowledge into action. Welcome to the family. He stood in front of one of the wealthiest rooms in the world. Billionaires, hedge fund managers, legends of Wall Street. Tony Robbins, a man who started with nothing, raised his voice and asked, "How many of you are truly unshakable?" Not a hand went up. That moment said it all. You could have billions in the bank and still be terrified of losing it all tomorrow. We've been taught that money is power, that success equals financial freedom. But what if I told you that even those who have reached the peak, those living in penthouses and owning private islands, still feel fear, still feel helpless when the markets crash, still wake up in cold sweats when uncertainty knocks? It wasn't always like this. There was a time when Tony himself had nothing. No food, no home, not even the illusion of security. He tells the story of Thanksgiving when he was a child and his family had no food. A stranger knocked on the door with a bag of groceries. In that moment, something clicked inside him. It wasn't just about being grateful, it was about becoming someone who could give, no matter what storms were raging outside. That moment became his fire. But as he climbed the ladder, coaching presidents, athletes, CEOs, he realized something terrifying. Almost everyone, no matter how wealthy, was living in a constant state of fear. Not because they didn't have money, but because they didn't understand it. They were standing on sand, not stone. And so, he set out on a mission. He called up the greatest financial minds alive. Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, Paul Tudor Jones, Jack Bogle. The ones who didn't just ride the waves, they built the ships that could weather any storm. He asked them one question: how do you become unshakable? Their answers were shocking. It wasn't about timing the market. It wasn't about chasing trends or betting on crypto or jumping at the next big thing. It was something far simpler. And yet, something most people never truly master: understanding the rules of the game and controlling your emotions within it. But here's the twist. Even when Tony had the blueprint, he knew knowledge alone wasn't enough. Because the real enemy isn't the market. It's not inflation, not the federal, not recessions or even depressions. It's us. You can give someone the exact steps to build wealth, and still, they'll sabotage it. Fear will whisper, "Sell now before it's too late." Greed will shout, "Double down, we're on a roll." Panic will blind you. Euphoria will trick you. And in the end, most will lose. And yet, there's a way out. A way to become unshakable, no matter what chaos rages around you. Tony tells the story of a man named Kyle, a father of 3 who had built a comfortable life and invested wisely. But when the 2008 crash hit, he lost nearly half of his portfolio overnight. He panicked, sold everything, sat on cash, watched in horror as the market rebounded and doubled in a few years. He didn't just lose money, he lost time, hope, momentum, confidence. But then Tony shares the story of another man, John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, the man who gave birth to the index fund. Bogle wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to beat the market. He simply believed in owning the market. All of it, forever, through every crash, every bubble, every panic. And over decades, he built more wealth for the everyday investor than most hedge funds combined. So, what made the difference? Kyle let the storm break him. Bogle sailed through it. The market didn't decide their fate. Their mindset did. Still, there's a darker truth lurking. Even when we know what to do, we freeze. We get paralyzed by choice. There are too many options. Too much noise. CNBC screams one thing. Social media shouts another. Experts disagree. Friends warn you. And inside, the voice says, what if I'm wrong? And that's why Tony doesn't just give you strategies. He gives you a shield, a framework, a system you can fall back on when the world goes crazy. Because it will. Markets will crash again. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And if you're not prepared, not emotionally conditioned, not armed with a plan, you'll fold. But what if you didn't? What if the next crash didn't scare you, but excited you? What if it was a chance, not a curse? What if you had clarity while others panicked? That's the essence of becoming unshakable. And it begins with one decision, to stop reacting and start owning the game. But how do you own the game when the rules keep changing? That's the illusion, isn't it? That the game is rigged. That Wall Street insiders know something we don't. That the little guy never stands a chance. And in many ways, you're right. Tony pulls back the curtain. He shows you how the financial industry profits off your ignorance. How complex language, hidden fees, and endless products are designed not to help you, but to keep you dependent, confused, and scared. They use terms like alpha, beta, derivatives, margins, rebalancing, and smart beta ETFs, all to make you feel small, so you hand over control. But then, he does something rare. He exposes the game. He names the enemy: high fees, emotional trading, media manipulation. And he tells you the truth most financial advisors never will, because their job depends on keeping you in the dark. The difference between paying 1% and 3% in fees might sound tiny until you do the math. Over 30 years, that tiny difference could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, over a lifetime, it could be the difference between retiring in peace or not at all. Now imagine this. You've worked your whole life. You've saved, invested, done everything right. But no one told you about the silent killer draining your wealth: compounding fees. A 1% leak that becomes a flood. And by the time you realize it, it's too late. Tony couldn't let that happen. Not on his watch. He sat down with Jack Bogle, the man who created the index fund revolution. Jack said something simple, almost too simple. Don't look for the needle. Just buy the haystack. In other words, stop trying to pick the next Amazon. Just own the whole market with ultra-low-cost index funds. And let time do the work. It's not sexy. It won't make headlines. But it works. So why don't most people do it? Because we're addicted to excitement. We want the thrill, the chase, the hot stock tip that'll make us rich overnight. We chase the flash and ignore the fundamentals. We crave speed over security, emotion over logic. But Tony reminds us, the greatest investors aren't gamblers. They're architects, builders. They don't play the game emotionally. They play it like chess, thinking 10 moves ahead. He shares his conversations with Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater, one of the most successful hedge funds on earth. Ray explained that success in investing isn't about predicting the future. It's about being prepared for anything. Ray built what he called the all-weather portfolio, a strategy designed not for bull markets, not for bubbles, but for the unknown. Because life doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in chaos. And only those who build for chaos can survive the storm. Tony took that idea and simplified it. He made it accessible for anyone. Not just billionaires. Not just hedge funds. For the mother working 2 jobs. For the retiree with a shrinking pension. For the 22-year-old with student debt but big dreams. He built a version of the all-weather portfolio that anyone could use. A portfolio designed to grow in any season: winter, spring, crash, boom. But even with the perfect portfolio, there's still one final enemy. One final gatekeeper between you and financial freedom. Your own mind. Fear doesn't ask permission. It kicks the door down. When markets drop, your brain screams, do something. Sell. Get out. And if you listen, you lose. But if you don't, you win. Tony tells the story of 2008, a year of blood in the streets, the financial system cracking at the seams, families losing homes, retirements vanishing overnight. But somewhere in the chaos, one man saw opportunity. Warren Buffett. While others panicked, Buffett bought. Not recklessly, not emotionally. He looked at the numbers. He knew markets recover. Always have. Always will. He invested in companies people were abandoning. And within years, those investments exploded in value. Because Buffett lives by one principle: be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. It sounds easy, but in the moment when the world is burning, it takes steel nerves. And that's what separates those who build wealth from those who watch it vanish. Tony doesn't just teach this. He trains you to feel it, to embody it, to see crashes not as curses, but as chances, to condition your nervous system so that when the market falls, your heart rate doesn't rise. You stay calm, clear, certain. That's unshakable. But the journey isn't just about protecting what you have. It's about building a future you can believe in. A life where money works for you, not the other way around. Where you stop trading time for dollars and start living on your own terms. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing you're free. Not because you won the lottery. Not because the market gave you a miracle. But because you followed a plan. You trusted the process. You stayed the course. You took control. That's the promise of Unshakable. Not just more money, but more peace. More certainty. More power. You think with all the tools, all the information, all the guidance Tony shares, people would never struggle with money again. But the truth? Most still do. Because money isn't just math. It's emotion, history, belief, trauma. Tony met a woman once. Sarah. She had a solid job, steady income, a 401k, and no debt. From the outside, she looked secure. Stable. But inside, she was terrified. Every dollar she spent made her anxious. Every market dip made her think it was all going to vanish. Why? Because she grew up watching her parents lose everything in 2001. She remembered the day her dad came home with tears in his eyes and said, "We're going to have to sell the house." That wound never healed. And now, even when she had enough, it never felt like enough. No strategy can fix that. That's why Tony doesn't stop with numbers. He goes to war with the lies we carry. The myths we've been sold by culture, media, even our own families. Like this one, the market is too risky. You can't trust it. But when you zoom out, when you look at the market over 20, 30, 50 years, it doesn't look like chaos. It looks like progress, like growth, like opportunity. Yes, it dips. Sometimes violently. But it always recovers. Always rebounds. It's not random. It's human. It rises because people innovate, solve problems, build businesses, push forward. So the question isn't, will the market crash? The question is, will you be ready when it does? Then there's another lie. I'll invest when I have more money. But that's like saying, I'll start exercising when I'm already fit. The power of investing isn't in how much you start with, it's in how soon. Because time is the ultimate multiplier. Tony shows how someone who starts investing $300 a month at age 20 could retire with over $1 million. But someone who waits until 35, they'd need to invest over twice as much to reach the same result. And yet, most people wait. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect amount, the perfect conditions. But perfection never comes. Tony's message is brutal and beautiful. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Because waiting costs more than failing. And then, perhaps the most dangerous myth of all, I need to be an expert to win. That lie has kept millions on the sidelines. Afraid, intimidated, frozen. But when Tony spoke to the world's greatest investors, people who manage trillions, not just millions, They all said the same thing. Simplicity wins. Not flashy. Not fast. Simple. Like Ray Dalio's formula. Jack Bogle's index funds. Warren Buffett's buy and hold strategy. They all say the same thing in different words. Don't try to outsmart the market. Just write it long enough and it'll carry you. But we don't believe it because it sounds too boring, too slow, too ordinary. So we chase the extraordinary. The next big thing. Crypto, NFTs, penny stocks, high-frequency trading, leverage, margin, options. Things we barely understand, but hope will make us rich. And sometimes they do. But more often, they break us. Tony tells the story of a man named David. Smart, talented, got into tech early, built wealth fast, then decided to trade options. He was making $20,000 a day until he wasn't. One bad bet, one market swing. He lost everything in 48 hours. A decade of work, gone. Because he thought he was the exception. Tony says you're not the exception. You're not smarter than the system, but you can be wiser. Wiser means playing the long game. It means choosing consistency over chaos. It means building a fortress instead of chasing fireworks. But even the wisest still feel fear, still feel doubt, still face moments where everything inside them screams, this is different. This time is different. That's what happened in 2020. The world shut down. Markets crashed. Businesses closed. Panic surged. Everyone thought it was the end, that nothing would ever recover. But history had a different plan. In months, the market not only rebounded, it broke records. The same people who sold in fear missed the biggest rally in a decade. Because they didn't trust the pattern. They didn't trust the process. They didn't trust themselves. Tony calls this emotional mastery. The ability to stay grounded when the world shakes. To breathe when everyone else is gasping. To see clearly through fog. That's what it means to be unshakable. Not that you never feel fear, but that fear never controls you. Not that you always win, but that you never stop playing smart. Not that storms don't come, but that you've built a ship that sails through them. He reminds us, in every crisis, there is not just danger, but opportunity. And those who are prepared, mentally, emotionally, financially, don't just survive. They thrive. There's a moment, somewhere near the end, when Tony asks a simple question that lands like a thunderclap. What if your wealth was already inside you? Because after all the strategies, all the portfolios, all the interviews with billionaires and geniuses and Wall Street giants, what remains is you. Your mindset, your standards, your decisions. He tells the story of a janitor named Ronald Red. A quiet man, drove a used car, wore simple clothes. No one knew he was anything more than ordinary. But when he passed away at 92, he left behind $8 million. How? Not by chasing fads. Not by winning the lottery. He invested small amounts, regularly, in simple index funds, over decades, and never touched it. While others chased hot tips, he followed the boring path. While others panicked, he sat still. While others doubted, he believed. No one saw it coming. And that's the point. Being unshakable doesn't look flashy. It looks invisible. But beneath the surface, it's strong, steady, silent, certain. And yet, you might still wonder, what's it all for? Because financial freedom isn't just a number in your account. It's sleeping peacefully at night. It's making decisions without fear. It's giving your family a life without compromise. It's waking up and doing what you want, not what you have to. It's the power to give, to change lives, to serve something greater than yourself. Tony says the secret to living is giving. He tells of a moment that defined his mission. It wasn't when he was on stage in front of 50,000 people. It wasn't in a private jet or at a billionaire's table. It was that day when he was a child and someone he'd never met gave his family a meal. He didn't just receive food, he received belief. Proof that even in the darkest moments, someone cared. And that belief became fuel. He vowed that day, when I'm able, I'll pay it forward. And now he feeds millions every year. Because true wealth is impact. And impact begins when you're no longer living in fear. That's why Tony wrote this book. Not to make you rich, not to help you beat the market, but to make you free. Free from anxiety, free from uncertainty, free from confusion. To give you back your power. Because when you understand how the game works, you stop playing like a victim. You stop chasing. You stop hoping. You start building. Building a plan, a future, a life by design. He doesn't promise it'll be easy. In fact, he guarantees the storms will come. Recessions, bear markets, tragedies, change. That's life. But now, you'll be ready. Not just because you have the right strategy, but because you've built the right mindset. When the media screams panic, you'll hear opportunity. When your friends sell in fear, you'll stand calm. When the world shakes, you'll stay grounded. Because you've trained yourself. You've prepared. You've become unshakable. And that's not just about money. It's about who you become in the process. A leader, a giver, a force for good. So ask yourself, when the next crisis hits, will you crumble? Or will you rise? The answer isn't out there. It's already inside you. And it always has been. And if you've made it this far, it means something inside you is ready. Ready to break free from fear. Ready to take control of your financial destiny. Ready to stop surviving and start living. But listening to this review is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you read the book for yourself. When you underline the words that hit your soul. When you pause at a sentence because it just changed your perspective. When you take the lessons and make them yours. So don't just stop here. Read Unshakable. Let Tony Robbins speak directly to you. Let the pages remind you of who you really are when fear falls away. And if this journey moved you, gave you clarity, or even lit a small fire inside, then subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. Together, we'll explore more books, more truths, more tools to build a life not of chance, but of choice. A life of power, purpose, peace. So hit that subscribe button right now and keep walking with me on this path to greatness. And never forget, you are stronger than you think. You are wiser than you know. And with the right mindset, you are truly unshakable.